Hello programming community, welcome to the channel where we make coding related stuff. Today we're gonna make factorial program. So what is factorial? Let me tell you. Suppose we take a number 5. So 5 factorial, basically represented by an exclamation sign, would be equal to 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So the number keeps on decreasing, the iteration goes on, and we have the product of all those numbers. So basically it's equal to 120. So now we don't have any need to calculate this manually, but we are going to make factorial program and the computer is gonna give us the factorial. We're gonna see 3 ways on how to make factorial program, from the very basic ones to the advanced. We can simply play with the libraries and modules of Python. By using from math module, we can import factorial. After that, we will have our input, which would be typecasted in integer, and it would basically ask us enter a number for its factorial. After that, we will just print the factorial of number, print with an F string, write factorial of our input, that is A, is factorial of A. Done. Our program is basically ready. Now if I check what is the factorial of 5, then it says me 120. Let's ask Python if our program is correct or not. So I write here 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, and it gives us 120. So our answer is correct. What if I take 0 here? We know that factorial of 0 is 1, and so is the computer saying to us. What if we write here -1? So it will give us error because factorial of negative numbers do not exist. To fix this problem, we will have our second program, which says factorial initially would be equal to 1. We'll take user input as integer typecasted input, which says enter number. After we get number, we will have our condition. If user input is less than 0, that is negative number, then just print factorial for negative values do not exist. Elif if user input is equal to 0. We know that the factorial of user input, that is 0, is always 1. So print factorial of 0 is 1. And the last but not the least, we have the else statement. For I in range from 1 to the user input plus 1, remind the index numbering in Python. We will have factorial is equal to factorial star I. Our I will keep on increasing. After coming out of the for loop, we will print with an F string factorial of our user input is factorial. And once it is done, let's run our program. Okay, it gives an error. Okay, so now let's run our program. It asks me for a number. Let's give 5. It says factorial of 5 is 120. Let's rerun this program and see if it takes 0. Yes, factorial of 0 is 1. What if I give -1 here? Then it says factorial for negative values do not exist. Now let's move on to the third way on making of factorial program. The last way did not basically fit the definition of factorial, because in factorial the number keeps on decreasing by 1. But in our program, the number was increasing from 1, then plus 1, then plus 1. So it was not basically decreasing, but I was increasing initially from 0 to the number itself. So now we have our last program. We will have first user input, which would be typecasted in integer, and input which asks us to enter a number for its factorial. Before that, we will have to make a function which will give the factorial of number and will inherit the user input from the global variable. Then we have if user input is equal to 1 or user input is equal to 0, then return 1, else return user input star factorial num of user input minus 1. So finally at the end we will have print f string factorial of user input is factorial num, and we will give it the value user input. So now basically our program is ready, and this program also fits the definition of factorial. So let's run it. Let's give it 5. It says factorial of 5 is 120, which is correct. What if I give it 0? It says factorial of 0 is 1. What if I give it minus 1 here? It repeats an error. So the best of all is the first program that I showed you, which won't give any error to us except value error, because if I give it a string, it will give an error, but it can be fixed with try and exceptional handling. So that was it for today, guys. Let's meet you in the next video with a fresh new topic.